This is continuation of lesson 2, and this is the second video, so we'll call it lesson 2B as in boy, and we're still dealing with angles, polygons, triangles, and quadrilaterals, and we're up to the triangle portion of this. Now, if you remember from triangles, when you add up all three of the angles of a triangle, they always add up to 180 degrees. And triangles can be classified, or we can call triangles different things depending on what they look like. Now, if we have a triangle that has one of the angles 90 degrees, we put a little box there, and that's called a right triangle. If we have a triangle with all the angles less than 90 degrees, they don't all have to be the same, but they all have to be less than 90 degrees, we call that an acute triangle. If we have a triangle where one of the angles is greater than 90 degrees, like this one here has an angle greater than 90 degrees, we call it obtuse. And if we have a triangle, and we've already mentioned this, that has all the same angles, the degree in each one of these is the same, it's called equiangular. Now notice, we have one equiangular triangle in the whole history of the universe, and that is when each of the angles is 60 degrees. Because remember, when you add up all three angles, they have to add up to 180 degrees. And 60 is the only number added 3 times that will give you 180 degrees. So whenever we're talking about an equiangular triangle, we're talking about a 180 degree triangle, or a 60 degrees for each angle. Alright, so let's continue on. When we have a triangle that has two sides that are the same, so if this side and this side are the same, that is what is called an isosceles triangle. When all of the sides are the same, we have an equilateral triangle. And when none of the sides are the same, so if this is one length, this is another length, and this is another length, so none of the three sides are the same, it's called a scalene triangle. So something to remember there, all the different types of triangles based on the angles, and then based on the length of the sides, give them different names. So for example, number 2.1, they give us a scalene triangle. Well, actually it's an obtuse and a scalene because the sides are not the same. But we'll look at this here, and it's asking us to find out how many degrees x is. Well, if we know that the length of a triangle, if we add up all the sides, we're going to get 180, then if we add x degrees plus 130 degrees plus 130, we're going to get 180. So there's our problem. So if we add up what we know, 130 plus 30 is 160 equals 180. And we know that some number plus 160 is 180. So in this case, it's going to be 20. So x gives me a 20 degree angle when I add them all up. Now, sometimes they will give you some very little information, but they will also give you some clues in order to find out what you're supposed to be looking for. So in this one, they're giving you one angle, and they're asking you to find the other two, and they're also telling you that and that are the same length. And that's all the information they're giving you. Well, one of the nice things about these are called isosceles triangles, if you remember, because two of the sides are the same. If two of the sides are the same, then these two angles also have to be the same. So that's just a little bit of a hint there. So if this is 50, then I know this has to be 50. And if I know that when I add up all of my angles, I'm going to get 180. So that's 100 plus y equals 180. And remember, when you're trying to find y, you subtract that from both sides, and we get y equals 80. So that measurement right there is going to be 80. And if you look at example number 2.3, they give us another triangle, and they tell us this one is 110, this one is y, and this one is x, and they tell us this is 8 and this is 8. Well, that tells me right there, if I have two sides that are the same, then they're isosceles, and that means that these two angles are the same. So this angle and this angle are the same, and when I add them up to 110, I'm going to get 180. So I've got x plus y plus 110 equals 180. And if I figure out what x plus y have to be, because these two added together plus 110 give me 180. So x plus y, and I'm going to subtract 110 here and subtract 110 here. So x plus y equals 70. And what did I say about x and y? They have to be the same number. So I have to find two numbers added up that give me 70. In this case, 35 plus 35 equals 70. They have to be the same number. So both x and y are going to equal 35. So let's talk just real briefly about quadrilaterals. Quadrilaterals are four-sided figures, and it really doesn't matter if the angles are the same, we just have different names for them. So if we have a quadrilateral that the opposite sides, so this side and this side, are the same length as this, and this side and this side are the same length, and they're parallel to each other. So this line here is parallel to this line, and this line is parallel to this line. They're called parallelograms. If we have four sides, and it looks like that, and this side here is parallel to this side, and that's all that's necessary. Is two of the sides have to be parallel, then it's called a trapezoid. A rectangle has four right angles, and it's also a parallelogram. So these angles are right, and remember, a parallelogram, this side is parallel to this side, and this side is parallel to this side. If all of those are true, then we have a parallel or a rectangle. A rhombus looks like this. And the definition of a rhombus is that it's an equilateral parallelogram. Means that all the sides are the same length, but not all the angles are the same angle. So it's kind of like a square that has been mushed over a little bit. So it went from 90-degree angle to various angles here. See, these are not the same, but these angles are the same. Okay, so same length of sides, but the angles are not the same. But what has to be true too is this and this have to be parallel, and this also have to be parallel. Which brings us to our last one, which is a square. And a square is a rhombus. But the difference between a square and a rhombus is that the square has the right angles. And let me draw another rhombus here. A rhombus here does not have right angles. Although these are the same, they're not right angles. And that's the only difference between a square and a rhombus. So that is lesson number 2. We're completely done with it.